Welcome to Fratflix, a podcast where college entrepreneurs chasing their dreams share their stories of success, lessons, and advice for you guys. Let's get it. Nick Douglas is a CEO and founder of 4 different businesses. Most people can't even start one. At the age of 21, bro, you have started 4 and you currently go to the University of Mississippi. How do you do it all?
Well, Liam, thank you for having me on. It's a great question. It's a fair question. It's a question that I do get a lot. I wish there was some blanket answer on, this is the key and this is how it gets done. It's a day by day grind, and it's not something where you can prepare and expect certain things. You can't expect a whole lot, but you can expect a lot in some regards. So you can expect a lot of uncertainty. You can expect that there are going to be crises every day. Crises, plural. So there are going to be things that go drastically wrong where you're counted on to perform. You have no idea how they're going to manifest themselves. You don't know if you're going to get into a car accident. You don't know if your computer's not going to work. Your phone could fall down an elevator shaft and crack, and you've got 6 Zooms you need to be on, and you need to go fix your phone. So there are all kinds of things that are going on. You need to get your tuition paid, whatever the case may be. Your car gets towed. You get a parking ticket. So you can expect things like that to happen. And when it comes down to the morning and the evening, you need to have that time and place to where you can truly decompress, be present with yourself, check every box internally so that when you're on, which is most days, most hours of the day, every day, then you can be present, you can address everything from a renewed approach.
So, one thing I was hearing you saying is like it's a lifestyle that you're living every day. And it's hard to live that lifestyle. I'm currently trying to live it. And reality's starting to set in. It's not just, oh, it's a week grind, it's a month grind. It's a day to day grind for the next 10 years in order for you to become successful. How was that mindset for you? How do you currently live that mindset out?
So it evolves over time because it's also important to bear in mind the fact that we are still growing. So we will still change. We will still be into certain things that resemble that of a young person. And so it's not like we've crossed the point where we're done growing. We are who we are. Now let's focus on building our life the way we want to build it. It doesn't work like that. It's not binary. So at the same time as you come out of your shell, as you discover yourself more, as your habits and what your interests are change, you also are implementing a very robust and intense lifestyle where your perceptions of the world are a bit out of whack, and you're also stuck in a social environment in college where there can be positives and there can be negatives depending on how you look at it. So I think ultimately, as you grow and evolve, it's important to not be rigid, and it's important to focus on, okay, here's where I am. Here's where my life is headed. Let me not lose sight of that. Having said that, I also must be open and receptive. So I went through a pretty long spiral, and we can dive into this more later, but I went through a spiral of just sprinting last spring, flying through school, flying through Zoom calls, more, email after email after email. Why am I not getting enough texts? Why am I not sending enough texts? What's going on here? Finally, I realized that there was something I was trying to fill, and I didn't know what it was. And I finally began to understand that I wasn't going to find true I was going to be happy and I was going to be satisfied, but there wouldn't be a true sense of fulfillment if I didn't really take the time to decompress, to be present with myself, to be present with God, to pray. And that's, once again, something we can dive into much later. But implementing that recently alongside a consistent fitness and wellness routine has allowed me to I'm doing the same things. I'm just as aggressive, but it's just a different version of me that shows up to those. So I'm not in just survival mode. I'm not just trying to sprint and run through the day and then I can shut my door at 12:30 in the morning and be like, "Okay, we're finally done." That's not sustainable. I'm gonna have wrinkles and gray hair by the time I'm 25. I don't want that.
Yeah, burnout is something that almost everyone experiences, whether it's early on or 3 years down the line. It's something I've already experienced in just the month I've been doing this. And I've realized like the routine and building good habits is what allows me to feel better and more confident and more productive during the day. What are just some of your best habits that you currently do?
Well, I'll tell you this, I'll give you the habits that I've implemented just over the last 6 months that have changed everything. So, the first thing is I begin my day and I end my day with a prayer routine. It's about 5 minutes. It's very consistent. I know exactly there's a freestyle part and then there's a scripted part. So, I have that in the morning and I have that in the evening, and at some point I make a commitment to doing it during the day. So whether it's before something, whether it's after a call, whether it's, I've got 90 minutes, I'm gonna go get some lunch. On the way to lunch, it's real quick. If I can't 5 to 6 minutes to do it, then my priorities are off. So that's one I've implemented just over the last few months. That wasn't even 6 months ago. But what that allowed me to do is when my mind went into that mode of like, okay, let's go to the next thing, let's go to the next thing, let's go to the next thing, let's go to the next thing. It was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. We're chasing, we're sprinting. Let's slow it down. Everything can get done. We can spend 5 to 6 minutes to be present with ourselves and with the Lord. And if we can't, then we have a we need to cancel everything the rest of the day because there's a much bigger issue if we can't do that.
Right.
So that's one. And then just overall, routine is not something that I have had over the last several years, really since leaving sports, leaving high school, leaving the house. But even in the tail end of that, I would say it's much more when COVID hit, come to think of it, routine was gone. And so, as far as eating goes, as far as waking up at the same time, we all know you're supposed to wake up at the same time. I had none of that. And that can work and you can sort of muscle through it and you can continue to carry the weight, but eventually that's going to run out. And so I don't like the term burnout, but that feeling is something that you can feel, that anyone can feel if you lack routine, if you lack quiet time, if you lack, different areas to expel your energy. And so those were all things I didn't have. So a consistent fitness routine, a prayer routine, and really just the commitment to being present in what I do. You won't see me pick up my phone during this. You won't see me writing an email or playing a game or doing really anything else while I'm on the phone with you. Same thing goes for every call I'm on later that day, every email that I do. If I'm going to overcome the inertia to get started on it, I'm going to finish it. Then I can go do something else. So those are all very recent habits that I've implemented that have really changed things.
Love that. One thing for me is, and I'm sure you can relate to this, is having a why. Because yes, you can do everything, you can have all the actions, the good habits, but eventually, if you don't have a strong enough why to carry you on your worst days, when your habits and actions aren't sufficing, I believe having a why is so important. When you wake up in the morning, you jump out of bed, you're excited to say, I'm doing everything for whatever it is. For me, it's having a family, being a father. What is the significance of a why for you?
Well, Liam, I'll say in the traditional sense, I never really had a why, but you stole my thunder a little bit there because being the example for my children and attracting a woman that I can pour into and that we can learn and grow together is essential. And so I look at a lot of youth, a lot of adolescence, and a lot of being a young adult as forming the story that and the individual that my children will see and hear about and be raised by, but also becoming the best individual to attract the best woman and welcome her into the fold, and we can complement each other in more ways than we can imagine. But I think beyond that, there's always been a commitment to every person that's ever said anything positive in my corner. That most of them I probably don't know of, but there are people that I probably don't know and that I don't understand, and I could never fully comprehend how much they appreciate me or how many positive things they've said about me. And then there are people where I do know, people that have taken the chance on me, people that looked at a version of me that was much younger and said, "You know what? There's something in this kid." And so I've never been a big believer in, oh, you need to prove a lot of people wrong. And to some extent, yes, you want to prove yourself right, but really for me, I got carried so much by my support group. And so I'd be foolish to not think about them and think about everything that they saw in me when, I was maybe just kind of going about life. And to think that I could ever let those people down. On top of that, if I'm letting those people down, then I'm letting my future wife, my future family down. That is something that I won't tolerate and therefore won't happen.
Yeah. Let's talk about your foundation for a minute. The starting of all of this, all the people that have believed in you when you weren't at a successful level yet and you're just starting out. What started all your entrepreneurial spirit and journey?
Great question. So I'd say a lot of it started. I was always wired very differently. Was never the kid to sort of fit in with the friend group in school. I always marched to my own beat. I thought of myself as a friend to all. I had friends in all kinds of different walks of life, all kinds of backgrounds, but I was never a part of one specific group. It was never the baseball kids or the band kids or the football kids. I was just it's kind of everywhere. I liked who I liked, but as I came to grips with the fact that I was not going to play pro sports, which is a tough realization for all of us that play. I knew my life had to make some drastic shifts because I looked at the time, even back then, I'm 15, 16, looked at the time and attention I was pouring into sports. And I thought, okay, inevitably this is going to evolve, whether it's tomorrow or whether it's 6 months from now or whether it's a few years from now when I'm holding on to this dream that really didn't have much of a future. And so when COVID hit, that put a lot of things on the fast track. Everything was expedited. The world was on pause. And I really began to understand who I was, what I was wired to do, what I could be most effective at, and why I believed where I believed I could add as much value into the world. And that process, there are highs, lows, there are all kinds of different phases you go through there, not to mention the fact that I was 15. So there's every change you can imagine going on, and you don't know, where your
Puberty.
parents fit into play. You don't know where you fit into play. You don't know where TV is. Like, I've got siblings. And so uh, through this wild turn of events, and like I, was getting God knows how much sleep. I was playing so much basketball. Like, there was just nothing going on. I finally understood that the best thing I could do was make the transition from playing the sport to the sport of business. And that was an environment where you create a culture. Number one, everybody expressed themselves. It was essential to express yourself. And I was always obviously a very vocal guy. And then on top of that, you had a hyper competitive environment. And so you had people, you had culture, you had competition. And if I wasn't going to channel that in the physical sense, then I was going to channel it all the time in everything I did. And then as we sort of, and the most important thing out of all of this, Liam, is I had a conclusion that I formed. I produced the thought, I sorted through every piece of it, and I reached the conclusion. So from negative 100, from the genesis of the thought to zero, where we really began to articulate the thought, to 100, where we fully completed the thought. I had done that entire process by myself. Now, obviously, I would ask for advice and everything, but I felt as if that conclusion was mine. And with all the inputs I had, and with everything I had garnered in my experience, with everything I had read, finally, I had concluded something that was what I felt was my own. And I knew why I believed it, and I trusted the sources and so on. And so with that, I was like, okay, if I want my life, and there's a period where I'm working in fast food in that time, and so I know I didn't want my life to look like that in the long term. And I finally understood, without consistent action, without immediate action, my life was going to look like the kid that flipped burgers all day, which is what I was doing. And I had to sort of get a taste of that. And I knew going into it, I need to experience this side of life in order to keep that fire where it's like, okay, there is no fallback. Like there is no choice. We get rid of the illusion of choice that, oh, well, we have time, we're young, it's okay. No, that I knew what I wanted, I knew what I believed in, and so it was time to go attack. And so I believe that that week I started my first business.
Wow. Before we dive into your first business, what was the self-reflection process actually like? Many of us who start out have maybe an idea, an inspiration, but the reality check to say, I'm going to immediately start. I'm going to dive all in and give it my all. It's a really hard reality check, and many of us are just lost on what we want to do. Tell me exactly what that reflection process looked like to you.
Yeah, so there's no one size fits all approach, number one. And number two, it's essential that this doesn't get rushed because the version of you that has to show up in order for this to have some serious longevity has to be really, really grounded and really persistent and very focused. This must be everything. To exist, to breathe, is to attack the day. And it must be that way for years and years and years. So that process for me, and I would break this down typically right after it happened. I had like this breakdown where it was like you have like the great awakening where you learn so much and you realize like, wait, there's a lot more that I didn't know. And then you have the great depression where you realize like, wow, now with all this knowledge, the world is a pretty depressing place. It's pretty cutthroat. It's very brutal. And then you have like the great enlightenment where you understand, okay, hang on, maybe there's a place for me here, or I can create a place for me here. And so that process, I break it down like that. That process was probably 8 months, 8 months of consistent confusion. And then toward the end, I finally decided, okay, I'm ready to phase out of this. We don't get any lower than this. Like we've been digging, we've been digging, we've been digging. And finally it's like, all right, let's start now. Let's just fire a shot. And so that's what we did. And by the grace of God, my life didn't fall apart. And so since my life didn't, as I said, there was no lower we could go. Since my life didn't fall apart, I was meeting new people. I was getting around a different environment. I was around, I guess, what one would compare to the camaraderie of sport. And so all of a sudden, I kind of felt like I was back into the swing of things. I felt like I was back home again. It just manifested itself differently. And this is what I wanted to do because, as I said, I had concluded that this was what I wanted to do.
Wow. So, starting your first business, it's so easy to go halfway, to try for a little bit, but not give it your full effort, and then you fail. What was that mindset like in saying, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna go all in, and if it fails, it fails?
So my approach has always been that fail is a first attempt in learning. It's a lot like hearing the word no. I believe there is a certain allotment of no's or failures that you must go through in order to get on the other side, in order to get over the hump. So that allotment could be 6, that allotment could be 36. But my thought was, okay, if I need to fail X amount of times, then let me go figure out how quickly we can fail and learn and move forward because it's a first attempt in learning. See what I did there?
I like that. I like
So
that.
we started this, and I was selling over the phone. I mean, I'm buying stuff at wholesale and selling it over the phone. And I had sold candy, I had sold shoes, whatever. And my thought was, once again, if I'm going to sell a bag of candy or if I'm going to sell a pair of shoes, it's going to get sold. I just have to get on the other side of all the no's. And I don't know the amount of no's, but the next no I hear could easily be the last one. And so this is a bit of whatever you want to call it, self manipulation, biohacking. There are all kinds of buzzwords for it, but that was what I did. I believed, okay, I need to get on the other side of all these no's. There will be a yes, and that feeling will be greater than anything I could have imagined. 15, 16. Once you get a yes, it's a pretty good feeling. And then from there, you grow and you grow and you have your support group and you have your people. And over time, you do have your ladder to climb, of course, but over time, things evolve and ultimately get better so long as you stay committed.
You make the process sound easier than what it
It's
is.
definitely not.
You say saying you just get denied no. Getting denied no is probably one of the hardest things. Not getting the results you want after 3 months is one of the worst feelings in the world. What do you do to in those moments of no, 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 no? What do you look to get over
Well,
that hump?
so great question. I think it comes down to the wiring. So one of the pieces of that 8-month period that I went through was an extensive rewiring process. So take an addictive personality, for example. The addictive personality is going to manifest itself whether you want to or not. You're wired how you're wired. So either it can manifest itself in any number of vices, or you can find a way to channel that a different way. So if I was going to be very intense and very focused on something, and we all see how addictive personalities manifest themselves, then I was going to do it on productivity and I was going to do it on progress. That was going to be my addiction, was covering ground. So when I dealt with people, when I met people, it was, let's get to know each other. Let's see how much ground we could cover. And in that whole process, you you control a lot of how you approach things. Your mind is a place that you can easily change or shift or tweak. I'm a big believer in that. You control a lot of your mind. And so I needed to reward myself for covering ground. So whether that was hearing 10 no's in a day, whether that was getting to know someone and understanding how to have a conversation, irrespective of selling, I'm just trying to get to know somebody. How quickly can I get to know them while also being present and being authentic and the like? And so when I took the approach of let's make as much progress as possible, whether on me, whether out in the world, whether in sales, let's fall in love with progress. Don't fall in love with the process, fall in love with progress. And that kind of approach shifted how I rewarded myself. And my reward system became very, very simple. And so that was one of the big things. But once again, you have to go through that process of understanding, hey, look, this is how I set things up to be sustainable for the long term.
Yeah, there's a quote that I love. My wrestling coach gave it to me back in high school, and it says, "The man who loves to walk will walk further than the man who loves the destination."
You're absolutely right.
And that's something that I've been trying to get better at is waking up every day and showing gratitude towards the opportunities I have to grow, loving the process of everything I am doing. But along the way, you have those comments in your head where you're like, man, I could be playing video games. I don't have to be doing this right now. But then reality sets in and your heart and your gut and your intuition and God speaks. He's like, no, no, no. I set this in your heart for a reason. But on those days that you want to give up, what do you look back to?
Well, I think I'm at a point now where I'm so deep into things that the most rewarding elements of my life are so far removed from hedonism or video games or time wasters. So I'm at the point now where I don't even really watch TV. Just don't do it. And it's not like I intentionally don't do it. Just don't do it.
Do you miss that stuff?
Not really. No. Because when you wire yourself to be fulfilled through progress and through a true mission, and when you really love what you're building, it just honestly, it naturally phases out. Like there was not a withdrawal, there was not a phasing out. You just you move on naturally. You're gonna say something.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know. For me right now, it's like I see all my buddies go and watching TV, hanging out together. And sometimes I do wish, like, man, I could go back there. You know, I have like a phase out process right now where I don't watch as much TV and I don't do that stuff. And it's difficult at times because I miss that. But then I realize what I'm doing is what I want to do, is what I love to do. So am I love the sacrifice of it, but I don't know, it's just I'm curious on how you don't miss that feeling of, you know, I don't need to watch TV. I don't need to scroll on my phone. My fun and fulfillment in life is through the work I do. I guess, which brings up your quote, work life balance doesn't exist. It's just life.
True,
Which could you
true,
talk on that?
but I think to go back to the initial issue, you have to go through the process. So I'm a big believer that you have to get everything out of your system, right? So if I'm going to, so like this semester, I haven't really been out on the square. The square is our big going out region. Outside of weekends, outside of when I'm hosting people, I haven't really been out on the square. That's not to say that there wasn't a drive to go. If I have a drive to do something, it gets done. If I had a drive to go out on the square, I would either be fighting the resistance to go on the square and working, or I would be there. So that means what that translates to is there was a process by which I scratched that itch and I went to the square enough and I went home afterward and I showered and I went to bed and I woke up and I was like, that was fun. That was cool. And then I did it again and that was fun. That was cool. But as you go on, is there a level of fulfillment that's there? Sure. Most of the time, right? But let's look at the contrast. The level of fulfillment that comes from getting work done. Very different, obviously. With one of them, I'm dealing with a handful of people on a computer screen. And in one of them, I'm dealing with 500 people in the same room. So it's a very different level of fulfillment, but I loved the contrast there. And so last spring, I would do a lot of both. Well, now I've seen the fun that is there and I've enjoyed it and I've indulged in it and it's great. But the level of fulfillment that I'm getting from work just far outweighs that. And most importantly, the level of fulfillment I get from waking up early and going to fitness and not having to take a nap and not fighting that resistance all day is that much greater than the feeling I get from going out. That's an example. When it comes to TV, when it comes to video games, obviously when I was a kid, I'd play the Wii or whatever.
Everybody did.
Yeah, I mean, I loved watching football, of course, but once again, you go down this path over and over and over and over again where the game ends, or the show ends, or you've been there for 90 minutes on your phone. Then you turn it off. Then you sit there and you're like, is that the best use of my 90 minutes? And if you're honest with yourself, and if you're wired the right way, if you focus on the progress piece and the productivity piece, the answer is typically no. And so the process by which I eliminated a lot of those comes down to, okay, how much will I allow this feeling of discontentment to rot? It must rot me inside out because I don't want to do it anymore. So I'm ready to leave this habit, but it's a habit. So if it's going to exit the equation, there must be a strong reason that it exits because mentally I'm going to fall right back into it. But if there's a strong reason that I exit, then it's head versus heart. And my heart will overcome it if there's a good reason to do so. So we have to assign a reason as to why we're going to cut this out. And some people it's 5, some people it's 500, but you have to have different phases of, wow, I'm so frustrated that all that time got wasted. I'm so frustrated that maybe you spend all day watching football Sunday. Nothing wrong with that. But on Tuesday and Wednesday, if you're really behind and you're just struggling, maybe you should reflect on why things are that way. Why don't I have enough time in the day? Why am I not sleeping right? Why am I not keeping up with the right people? Why am I not following through with this project? No problem watching football on Sunday, but make sure you check all your boxes. And if a habit you're doing consistently gets in the way, then there are all kinds of ways to do it. Some people are cold turkeys, some people they phase it out, but if you're wired for productivity, typically Typically, you know exactly what you need to do.
I like that. So, what do you do for fun then on the weekends? You're a college student, you're
Correct.
21. You're a beta, right? You're in a fraternity?
I am, as a matter of fact, yes.
Yes. So much always just going on.
Yeah.
What do you do for fun?
So fun is fascinating to me because people believe there's this pendulum, right? Where you're either having and I, I don't think a lot of our world is black and white. And if it is black and white, then wherever the positive thing is, that's where I like to be all the time. So when we look at fun, how do we define fun? That's what the real question comes down.
Fulfillment. I'd say it's fulfillment
I would agree with
in
that.
what you're doing.
I would agree with that. And when we go through this whole process of fundamental rewiring and unlearning and understanding why we're here and what we enjoy, fun begins to look very, very different. All of a sudden, you're interested in a lot of different things. I make the joke, you fear that your frontal lobe is developing, where it's like, wait a sec, maybe this isn't fulfilling. Maybe what everyone else does is not good. Or you could take the harsh reality approach, which is everyone does a lot of the same things. Most people do most of the same things. Well, do most people enjoy the lives they live if they're honest with themselves?
I don't know. Probably not. Probably
Okay.
not
P-
as
p-
high as they could be.
Potentially not. But the core point of emphasis in that comment, Liam, is if they're honest with themselves. Like I don't believe that most most married people, if they're honest with themselves, are truly happy in their marriage. That's why half of all marriages end in divorce. I wouldn't be shocked if everyone was really honest with themselves if it was a little more than half. Now, I obviously am a huge believer in marriage. I look forward to that, but it's just an example on how people are not honest with themselves. And if you're honest with yourself, a lot of the things most consider fun or what you should do is not what's fulfilling to you, who's obviously cut very different. And so if you're happy in the herd and you're happy following everybody, you can go down that path. But if you feel like you're called to something different, you'll go down that path just to be unfulfilled. And some people have to go and experience that. And I get that because that was me for so long. But now I know what's on the other end of that. And it's like I don't need to learn that one through experience. I've already learned enough through experience.
Okay. Being different than your peers has got to be hard. They Everyone else is doing the fun, the partying, the watching TV. Do you get judgment? Do you get anxiety, FOMO? Or what do you do when that happens, I guess?
Not really. I've always been one to lean into being different. I always thought I was the kid where, I thought it was cool to be friends with everybody. I thought it was cool to be smart. I thought it was cool to be intelligent. I thought it was cool to be good at throwing the football. I thought it was cool to enjoy that. I thought it was cool to not be on the phone, cool to be having a conversation. And so, the partying and everything, is there a time and place for it? Absolutely. Is it a huge priority? No. And will it ever be? No. I'm sure at some point, a previous version of me wanted it, and at some point, a previous version of me got it. At a certain point, there comes a time in every man's life where you have to make some tough decisions, and a lot of these weren't really that tough. And if there's judgment or if there's hate or if there's, I get shade thrown at me or whatever, and I feel bad for a lot of those people. I really do because that I know how I'm received. I know how I carry myself. I know the people that are in my corner. If someone feels a certain way that is negative, it speaks to a much deeper issue than anything I'm saying or doing. And so some people want space, some people want help, some people come back around, some people never do. I can't be bothered by it. There are too many people that are receptive, that want to hear what I have to say and be around me. I don't sell to anybody that doesn't want to buy. If you don't want to be there, adios. There's the door. If you can't stand me, don't be around me. Simple and straightforward. I could not be attached. I could not be bothered. Like, oh, I wish you the best. I hope you're eating, but not at my table because you don't want to be there. So I don't want you there. I want you to do what you want to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You're a pretty confident guy and you have pretty high beliefs and morals and habits and good qualities. But what's something that has been hard in your career, maybe broken you, but you fought through it?
I think the most recent example would be casting an unreasonable expectation on the world. I'm someone that thrives under an unreasonable expectation. So let's continue to move the goalpost. Let's take our 10-year goals and condense them to 6 months just so we can make as much progress as possible. And when you start to project that onto others and onto the rest of the world and just frankly uncontrollable elements, I can control the version of me that shows up. And so I could set the expectation that I know I'll thrive under. But when you start to do that for other people or for other things, you get let down a lot. And what I've done my best to is set things up to where I'm not let down as much. But I found that I was getting let down a lot. And it wasn't intentionally by others, but I just noticed like, okay, maybe this is something that I'm doing. Like I'm setting myself up to get let down a great deal. And I had to go through this process of understanding, hey, I need to set a reasonable expectation on everyone, and I can expect what I communicate. But on top of that, I must have a rapport to where my people feel comfortable communicating what's unreasonable. So you don't want to be the leader that just barks out orders. You want to say, hey, look, this is the expectation. You know, is this reasonable? And if the answer is, I hate dealing with yes men. So I hope if the answer is no, you're willing to tell me no. And then we can figure that out and move forward. But another piece of that is just sort of detaching from emotions on a lot of things. You can't get too, you need to reach homeostasis with a lot of that. So you can't get too high, you can't get too low, because however high you get, just know the kickback, if you go from 50 to 80, then you're going to feel something that is of equal or greater value in the negative realm, and you're going to drop down to 20. Whereas if you go at 50, if you go down to 45 and up to 55, you're a lot more predictable and you're a lot more stable. And that's ultimately what you.
Okay, I like that. Just the past interview I had with Matt, we were talking about kind of that same thing, but I was saying more on a heartbeat. So no matter what in life, I think you're going to have emotions that make you rise. You know,
Correct.
your first kiss, your first making amount of money, your first successful something, it is going to rise high. But in life, you also have those moments where you get your heart broken, where you try for 3 months and it fails, where something just goes completely wrong, and you're gonna have those lows. And for me, how I see it is like life is like a heartbeat. You're gonna have highs, you're gonna have lows, and that's part of it. But you don't want to be a complete flatline because a flatline means you're dead.
Yes.
But it's a
You're talk about fun. You don't have a whole lot of fun when you're a flatline.
no, you don't. But it's about managing how to take those super high moments and realize, I love being high, but I'm gonna come back down and taking and not being disappointed in it. And then taking those lows and saying, man, life sucks. But rather saying, I'm at a low spot, but I'm going to get better. It's so different. My mindset has been recently about just maturity in developing a business and seeing life honestly differently because it used to be so fast paced, the next instant gratification. And now I'm seeing as, it's going to be a long process. It's going to be hard. What's something that you would tell others about the process of suck?
Well, other than the obvious, which is, the fact that it's very necessary, I would think that you see the process of suck. I don't think the process of suck sucks. I never
What do
did.
you mean?
I always, once again, when I hate to keep coming back to this, but when you're wired for productivity and for progress, if you're fighting an internal resistance, then stop doing that and find what the resistance is and then go and fix it or stop. Just pull the plug because you're supposed to be doing something different. And so, not to say that people can't change, you can absolutely grow, but the version of you that goes through a lot of what this journey takes must be wired very differently than the version of you that has gone through school and has grown up the way that they have. It takes a lot of will in order to change that, a lot of will in order to evolve. And so when you're enduring what you call the process of suck, I'm not sure if I'm in the process of suck right now. I mean, by some metrics, people would say, "No, you're not. Your life looks pretty great. It's fun." But then there are some times where it's like, "Well, I'm glad I'm meeting everybody else's expectation, but I don't think I'm meeting my own expectation. Like I'm doing what I feel that I'm supposed to do." So a perfect example was when I released my book and it hit bestseller. I had this outpour of support, and for one of the first times, I wasn't really excited. I didn't feel the need to celebrate because that's what I expected to get done. That's what was supposed to happen. Alabama doesn't storm the field and rip down the goalposts. But when you beat Alabama, you storm the field and you rip down the goalpost. When Alabama wins, that's what's supposed to happen. There's no celebration. If anything, we're extra critical on for one reason or another, on what didn't happen, what was supposed to happen, what happened that shouldn't have happened. But when you beat Alabama, everybody's high fiving, everybody's smoking cigars, goalposts are coming down to the biggest wins in program history. And so it comes down to how you view yourself, but also the version of you that shows up. And you have to be obsessed. You have to be maybe a bit unhealthily obsessed. And if you're not, whoever is going to beat you.
That is so true. There's all one thing I always think about is there's someone out there working harder than me. And then it makes me say, I'm not gonna let them work harder than me today.
Having
I'm
said that,
going
it's important to believe that there is
internal.
our world is not scarce. Do not be
Yeah.
frugal. There is room for everyone at the top so long as everyone shows up and remains committed and does what they're supposed to do. That's where people don't do it. That's where people fall is they don't do what's necessary. So there's enough money for everybody. There's enough success. There are enough boats for everyone to, enough crazy houses on the beachfront. There's enough for everybody if everybody did what was absolutely necessary. And so when it comes down to what is absolutely necessary, that's only something that you can decide because you're on your own journey, you're dealt a certain hand, and so you have to progress and move forward with what you've got or change it.
Yeah. You mentioned briefly earlier a little bit about God. I would love to dive into that. I'm a big believer in God guiding my path for me. And it's not just my journey, it's our journey, me and him, him helping direct me, him helping guide me in the moments of success and the moments of suck. It's mine and his path together. How has God played a role in your life?
So it's evolved a lot over the last several months. I've always been around the faith. I've always been in the church, obviously Christian. But once again, I was going through this process where I was sprinting through life. I was trying to do everything, check with everybody, get as much done, and talk about a reasonable expectation. I just continued to move the goalpost, move the goalpost, move the goalpost. And I just realized that once again, as great as it was to make all this progress, there was not a true sense of fulfillment. I feel like God sort of sent me this wave of adversity where even though in a lot of ways my life looked better than it had for a really long time, it didn't feel better. And I needed to go through that and I needed to endure that to understand that there can't just be a belief in God, there has to be a genuine trust in God. And if I was going to grow and scale things how I wanted, and I was going to personally grow, and my life was going to evolve how I wanted it, I was going to need a lot of help from the Lord. And so I endured several months of just low energy. So really, I woke up and it was it was a battle to stay optimistic. It was a battle to see things through. I was constantly, calling partners and calling friends, just sort of looking for a conversation or looking for validation on what I'm doing. Like, hey, am I okay? Is everything all right with me? Am I good? And I just realized, like, God, what is going on? Like, this is not like this shouldn't be how it is. And at a certain point, I realized, like, okay, I've always thought I had a good relationship with God, but maybe it needs to grow and evolve a little more. And through that process of getting out of that low state and moving more toward the contentment that comes with making real, genuine progress, I saw the place that I needed God to be, which was a much more active spot. If I trusted God, I could delegate things to God and say, "Hey, look, I'm not sure how to handle this. I have no idea what I'm supposed to do. So you need to take the lead on it." I could pray and ask God to do that, and then I could see a manifestation. Or better yet, "Hey God, I'm ready for this. I'm ready to grow. I'm ready to make the change. Help me get started because I don't know where to start. I don't know what to do. And if I don't see anything, if it's not obvious, then I won't do it. So I'm ready. Please help me." And then all of a sudden you start to see little proof points there, and then you're like, okay, so hang on, this is how we're supposed to do things. And then over time, once again, it's evolved into my prayer routine, and that's that's what keeps me centered throughout the day, and that's what keeps me focused in the morning, last thing on my mind at night, so I can, endure this crazy wild roller coaster that is every day.
That's something that has really impacted me on starting all this journey is my walk with God. I started this summer for me. And one thing I've been trying to do is listen to him and all the chaos that's going on and all my million thoughts a day and all the 1 million directions I'm being pulled a day in my busy schedule. You can get so caught up with your internal voice saying, this is what you need to do. These are the temptations you want to do. But when you step back and you continually, every day, rely on God, ask for help and clarity, it really opens up just a new heart, a new flow of energy. But it's hard. It's very hard to say, God, I'm going to let you take my wheel. This is my plan. But if this is not my plan, if this is not your plan for me, then show me the path. Show me the answer. Show me where I'm supposed to be going. But how do you let God take your wheel and you're just riding in the car with him?
Well, it's interesting because y- you want God to intercede until he changes something that you like. And then you're like, whoa, what happened there? And it can complicate things because you're like, okay, perhaps this is what I prayed for, but this isn't what I really wanted. And so then it comes down to the battle of interpreting God. You know, is this really God, or is this a test? Or are we trying to validate something here? Or are we trying to see if I really want something? And so that's been a journey in and of itself. I mean, it's not, once again, like it is a long process, but once again, it's like you turn back to God and say, "Hey, look, Lord, I'm not sure what this is. I'm not sure how to interpret this, but please make it a little bit more obvious what needs to get done." And I'm telling you that the process by which we continue to turn to God and say, "Hey, you seem to be giving me the sign. I'm not sure that this is what I believe it to be. I'm not sure if this is what I prayed for. So, in essence, please double down or make something else more clear because I'm not sure what's going on here." And once again, if you truly trust God, you can go back and ask for a more obvious sign or another sign. And if something is meant to be or not meant to be, or whatever the case may be, I've found that it's been very obvious. And when you have that kind of culture and that kind of relationship, it's like, why wouldn't we take 15 minutes a day throughout our day? So five, five, and five, to stop what we're doing, to really be present and to go through the same routine and have consistency. Because when it's been something I've wanted or not wanted or what I needed, irrespective of whether I wanted it or not, I've gotten it.
Many people and have dreams and aspirations, and I will ask you, what's that one piece of advice? But you have told me there is no one piece of advice.
No, that's the advice. The
Could
advice
you
is
go
that there's not one piece.
could you go into that?
Yeah. So, unfortunately, we're in an era where people look for tips and tricks to fix things, which is great when you're doing, DIY home renovation, but it's not great when you're trying to drastically change your life. So we've covered a lot of ground here where we've talked about fundamental rewiring, we've talked about unlearning, we've talked about the journey that allows you to show up with consistency to the Lord. I can't give you one dosage of advice that would get you on that path. Now, granted, that's also my path that's been forged for years, and I believe it's what the Lord had in store for me. But I'm not sure if Liam or if, Jeffrey down the road is meant to endure that same path that I endured. I also got started much earlier. And so that was great for me. But I mean, I don't think everyone at 15 or 16 is meant to go down the entrepreneurial path. I don't think most people, period, are meant to go down it. In fact, I think the it's frustrating that it's become so trendy because not everybody's cut to do it. So, all that to say, the approach of looking for one piece of advice is just another example of the fact that this is not for everybody. And anyone that's been through it knows that one piece of advice does not solve the problems, does not prepare you. It's the the long process by which you have gaps, you must grow, and you must show up consistently every day in all kinds of realms is what leads to real progress.
I like that. We can go into a couple of just kind of quick fire questions. Is there one book that has really significantly changed your mindset, thought process, helped you that other college students should read?
Well, I've obviously I've read a lot of books. I think my favorite book right now would be the fascinating story inside college football's billion-dollar transformation. Where did our game go? It's written by Nick and Dean Douglas. Those guys do an amazing job telling the story of college football and what's happened to the game. So
So
that's
I've
probably
heard.
the one book that I would really lean on.
I like that. One habit you can't live without.
New bestseller, by the way.
Oh, check that
Amazon
out,
bestseller.
guys. Everyone
Learn
check
about
that
college
out.
football. Where did our game go.com.
Yes, absolutely. What's one habit you can't live with?
Right now, it's the prayer routine and the fitness routine. On the road, the fitness routine gets disrupted, which we can find workarounds for in the short term. But I guess the answer would be the prayer routine.
One failure that taught you more than success could ever.
Really good question. I think the process by which I went through the spring last year, I think it was a failure in the sense that I wasn't doing what was necessary to take the leap. And that process of getting broken down and destroyed, and I even got sick. I haven't been sick in like 10 years, where I'd been really down for the count. But that failure, so to speak, was what taught me it rearranged my priorities in the best way possible.
If this conversation was played back to your younger self, what would you hope he took away from this?
I would hope that he would not hear himself talking. I hope that he would think it was a stranger. Otherwise, I would probably feel pretty good about the path I'm going down. And one of the best things about being in your mid to late teens, working on some of the things I worked on and am still working on is there's a lot of uncertainty and you're going to sleep for years with doubt on your mind. Is it going to work out? Am I crazy? Is this going to be fine? And if I had heard this and I knew it was myself, I don't know how I'd react. So
And then finally, for all collegiate students, entrepreneurs, guys our age, 16, 17, 18 years old, women out there, what would you tell them if they have a dream, aspiration, a gut feeling that they are different, they are meant to be more, but they don't know where to begin? What would you tell them?
I would say that for the most part, you know exactly what you need to do. whether it's cut a certain habit that's lingering, whether it's make a phone call. I have a hard time believing that there are that many people out there with dreams and ambition that truly don't know where to start. And I think a lot of people start by subtraction. Start by looking at some people in your life, start by assessing your habits, start by analyzing go hour by hour every single day of the week and go through and see what needs to be added and subtracted. If you really don't know where to start. But once again, I've always been a pretty intuitive guy. I believe most people that see themselves as an entrepreneur are pretty intuitive. You have to be. You have to be a visionary. And you typically know exactly what needs to get done. And if you don't, you can make a phone call to someone that will know exactly what needs to get done. So,
Awesome. I love that answer. Thank you for your time, Nick.
absolutely, man. This was awesome.
Yeah, you've shared so much wisdom about just everything from life to business and everything in between. Where can people connect with you if they want to follow your journey, see your progress, learn more about what you do, or reach out if they have messages?
Absolutely. So Liam took probably the most unconventional route, which was LinkedIn. Um, I'm I don't use my LinkedIn a whole lot, but one of my core tenets, actually is something I should say. One of my core tenets is I do make time. I try my best to make time to reply to everybody. So if you inquire, even if it's on a platform that I don't use, I will still come on your podcast. or but
Dang,
I will reply to your email, reply to your direct message, or whatever the case may be, because I got carried and helped out by so many people who are willing to do the same for me. So on all my platforms, Douglas_dude. And as I said, you can shoot me a message, you can shoot me a follow, whatever the case may be, and we can go from there. But I try to make myself very accessible.
awesome. I always see your stories. You're staying live with the current football. You're always up to date, always traveling. It's always inspiring looking at everything you're doing. If you guys want to check him out, make sure to check out Douglas_dude. And if you want to learn more about football, go get his book.
New bestseller,
Where did
the
our
best
game
book I've
go?
ever read. Where did our game go?
Absolutely. Awesome. Thank you for your time, Nick.
Of course, man. Appreciate you,
I'll
man.
see you.
See ya.
Thanks for tuning in to Fratflix. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a like. And subscribe and follow on TikTok, Instagram, Spotify, and YouTube at frat_flicks. I hope you learned something that you can start implementing today. And remember, always love yourself. Peace.
We're not in a hopeless place.